You are listening to the Beyond the High Road podcast with Shelby Milford, episode number 87. Stay tuned. Hi, you guys. So today I have some concepts in my head again, some quotes that I was reminded myself of yesterday. And so let's see if it'll come all together. It is Wednesday afternoon right now at the time of recording. And so as you guys know, even though these are supposed to drop on Thursdays, technically, I usually like to drop them as early as I can, as early as I get them edited. And that's, I try, usually it's Wednesday afternoons, evenings, but we shall see because the short week here in the US anyway. And it is, afternoon. Yeah. So what brought this on, the inspiration for this one was shopping for a birthday card for my darling daughter the other day. Okay. I was just so tired and dragging and feeling like I couldn't get what I wanted to say out with you guys because my brain felt foggy. And I will just tell you that, I haven't probably talked about this in a long time. So jumping jacks have always been like my Windex of like cure-alls. Like do some jumping jacks, you'll feel better. Do some jumping jacks, you'll get some energy. I also used to teach yoga for years and years. And I practice it myself, kind of like integrated in with other stuff. Anyway, my point is if you're ever low on energy, go get your head underneath your feet. Go do an inversion. So I just did handstands on my sliding glass doors there. And I now have energy and my mind has cleared. Instant. It's amazing. I mean, don't go hurt yourself, please. I mean, I don't want to be the cause of anybody's neck problems or any other sort of injuries. But if you can, even like laying upside down, like laying on your bed with your head hanging off of the side of it, that'll also do any sort of supported inversion. Even like a tripod. Remember when you were a kid and you would do a little tripod? You could do that too. Anyway, it's amazing for brain fog, low energy. So now I'm better. Now let's get into it. Okay, so I was card shopping for my kiddo and I was running into all these, in my head, problems. What if she doesn't like this one? What if this one is too heavy? What if this one's too light and too funny? I don't want to send the wrong message and send her a card that is poking fun at all of this and trivializing our situation. I think, honestly, there's a few other more humbling and also more intimate experiences, at least for me, than when you're shopping for a card for somebody that you love. Because it comes down to you redefining your relationship with them. What message are you wanting to send to them? Are you going to express love in the way that you want to express it or feel like you should express it? There's all these rules that we live by. And that's kind of what happened. So all these different cards, nothing was always kind of like being like the three little bears, This one's to this one's to that, this one's not enough. And I walked out of the store, although I walked in, I might as well have been skipping. I was in a great mood. When I left, I felt like drained and a little bit disheartened and without a card, I might add. I did not leave with a card in my hand because there wasn't the quote unquote right one. But what I realized while I was walking to my car and in my car, sometimes I sit in my car and think or write notes to myself or whatever, even though I live alone, technically. I mean, I've got animals, but most of the time, especially when my pig was around, I would go sit in my car to get away from the animals, like as if they were kids, how some parents do to get away from their kids. Anyway, so I was sitting in my car and I was thinking I was not standing in my own power in the card shop. I was instead allowing everything external to define my relationship with my daughter. I was relying much on what I was supposing the response was going to be, how it was going to be received, right? Whichever card I would have picked. And then I ended up, which is so typical for all of us in all the situations, not just card shopping, but I ended up creating all of these other problems in my head to the point where I was distracted by those problems and not focused on the task at hand. And I walked away getting nothing accomplished. And this, I think, it's so representative of what we deal with on the larger scale when it comes to our children and alienation, and even before alienation began. And today, I have a few concepts in my head, like I sometimes do, many times do, but I also have 3 or 4 different quotes. I think that they're actually, oddly enough, all from one particular person, which isn't normally the case, but they all really apply here. And this person that I'm getting ready to share with you, it has nothing to do with alienation or even like the psychology world, really. I mean, yes and no, but it's Dan Sullivan, and Dan Sullivan is more of like a finance coach, helping businesses and entrepreneurs. But his message applies across the board, right? As far as like with us. One of the things that he is known for saying, now I might butcher this quote because I did not look it up. And this one, stay with me here, because if I were to hear this as it applied to alienation years ago, I probably would have told you to go jump in a lake of lava, hot boiling lava. I would have been very annoyed with you. One of his things is there are no problems except for the ones that you create in your head. I'm going to let that sit with you just for a hot second before I give you more context. So there are no problems except for the ones that you create in your head. If somebody would have told me this years ago, I would have told them to go fuck themselves. Because clearly this whole mess that I was in, and you as well, is only happening because of the problem, right? The alienating parent displays narcissistic traits. This is a pattern for them. This is how they do. They're clearly toxic people. Both parents would be able to love their children. They're intervening and they're stepping in the way. They are clearly the problem. That's where I would have been. And I still am. Yeah, common sense says this is not how people should act, right? People shouldn't do that. And as I've been saying the past few weeks to you guys, it's low-hanging fruit. We know this. This is common knowledge. We know how people should act. We shouldn't kill. We shouldn't rape. We shouldn't block the other parent from seeing their children and having a relationship, being able to be loved and love and be loved by the other parent or anybody really in their life that loves them. We know this. And what I think is very helpful to consider, ponder, just like maybe how it might be true, is why we're defining alienation, as a problem to begin with. I know. I feel you. I understand. I'm with you. It's not right. It's not right what they're doing. They're not acting in a loving way. But when we focus on a problem, like me the other day in the card store, when we focus on the problem itself, we're not thinking about a solution, right? Just like the gap versus gain, Dan Sullivan's book, when we're focusing on the gap, we end up losing out on the ability to create the gain, right? And so we end up lacking. Instead, though, if we can focus on who we are, what we have, and how we're seeing the quote unquote problem, then the focus turns into us and what we can do. Because if the problem is always the alienator, the person that's alienating our children from us, then we can never do anything. Our hands are always tied behind our backs. Me the other day, this is something very trivial, this card shopping thing, but I think it's always, as for ever since I began, I've always gone to a very simple concept, and applied it to our situations of alienation. It's less activating. It shows the point a little bit easier, illustrates the idea. And then you can apply it to your situations. But me going to the card store the other day and me focusing on what they might receive it as, they meaning not just my daughter, but whoever's hands it falls into, quote unquote, falls into, before my daughter gets it, if she does. So because I was focusing on all of that and how it might be received, and is this one too funny? Is this one too lovey? Is this too overpowering? Am I leaning on her? All of that stuff. Because I'm so worried on how it might be received, I walk out of there without a card. Same thing on the big scale with the whole situation of alienation. When we're focused on the quote unquote problem, the alienator, the place where this all originated, which by the way is debatable because I could argue that point a million times over with you, that it didn't start with the alienator. But if I'm focusing on them and waiting for them to change and for them to not be the problem, then what the fuck do I do in the meantime? Until they change, I'm stuck thinking about how life isn't fair and I got a shitty deal in this whole parenting situation. And that my daughter is being abused and she's, got her whole life ahead of her. And now she's not going to be emotionally as equipped as I would, of course, choose her to be. But again, saying that is presenting another problem that may or may not be. Who knows how she's supposed to be emotionally equipped? Maybe the situation of alienation is actually equipping her in the way that she needs in order to grow. I cannot actually dictate that. Do you know what I'm saying? The problem is all in the way that we're thinking about it. It's not whatever thing is happening outside, even if it is something as horrible as alienation or rape or murder or whatever. People are going to people and people are going to be, there is evil in this world and shit does go wrong. Things happen. It's not how we would have chosen, even in cases like this. And I know you guys, I know if this is if this is the first time you've ever heard me, please know that I am not gaslighting or saying that there is no problem in alienation, blah, blah, blah. But I want to equip you guys, help you to equip yourselves in the most effective way so that you can move from where you're at right now to a more evolved place, a more productive place. And the way that you do that is by shifting your focus to what you can control, right? And if you're pointing your finger saying, they're the ones this all started because of them, and I can't move because they're doing everything, and now I just have to, I'm the one playing damage control, or whatever you're saying. When you're presenting that as the problem, or my daughter's mental health, for me, if I'm saying, oh, well, she's not going to be as emotionally equipped, how do I know? Who am I to say what is supposed to happen for her? Who are you to say? And when we do focus on that problem, guess what doesn't get done? The things that we can actually apply ourselves to, the ways that we can change our life today and affect our future and maybe, who knows, our children's future as well. So the problem isn't the things that are outside of us. It's the way that we're seeing them. Dan Sullivan also says, a problem isn't a problem until you declare it one. Now, that's not his exact words, but that's the gist of it. Nothing is a problem until you declare it one. And when you declare it one, not only are you now going to hyper focus, because that's what our human body nervous system does, right? Is hyper focus on it. For me, my body says, oh, Shelby says something's wrong. There's a problem. We're going to only focus on that and freak the fuck out there. And so the body gets activated and crazy and not working on all four cylinders, if you will. We're not thinking with and having perspective. You guys, I thought that it was Zoom that it was doing it. Talking about having another problem in my brain right now is that I thought that it was Zoom's fault, but come to find out, it is Mac. I thought it was a Zoom update. Every time I do certain gestures, it notices or it recognizes, and it has me doing thumbs up when I'm not doing thumbs up. Or it just now did all of these hearts, tons of hearts, because I guess I had my hands closed. Anyway, doesn't matter. So I just went to a little bit of a fit on my computer right now because I'd already turned that off and I had to stop the meeting. And anyway, long story short is there's another example for me of it's only a problem if I make it one. It's only a problem when I point the finger outwards and I don't have control over it. And it's not fair that my Mac isn't listening to me when I turn off the reactions. When I make it about something else and I'm blaming Mac in this case, then I have no control over it. And I can elevate my anger and frustration towards it. And it puts me in a bad mood, ultimately drains me, and I don't get anything accomplished. Just now, I had to take control, do a little mind management, a little emotion management. And I stopped recording right now and restarted my Zoom. So there was no problem other than the one that I was creating. When really, honestly, all I had to do, there was an easy solution. It was just me going and restarting Zoom, which makes sense why programs would still not be updated if I hadn't shut everything down and turned it back up on. You know what I'm saying? Makes sense. So anyway, hopefully now and forever, that reactions, predictive reactions or whatever was going on will stop. Anyway, so where was I? A problem isn't a problem until we declare it one. Yeah, that. So I think we get a benefit. There is a benefit that we receive by finding problems elsewhere outside of us. And that is we get to relinquish any sort of responsibility. And although that doesn't actually work for us at all in the long-term sense, it doesn't get us where we want to go. In the short term, it provides your survival brain with some downtime, some comfortability, which most of us, if we're dealing with alienation, have become so familiar with being in that state, in that using that part of the brain, the survival brain, right? Just motoring along barely like on idle. It's very familiar. It feels like the safe option. So it makes sense if you have been prone to placing blame elsewhere or looking at life as if you got the raw deal, if it's unfair. Again, I'm not saying that alienation isn't like an awful situation that we're going through. Y'all know by now my thoughts on that. You know that, of course, I never would have chosen this. If I could, I would change the other parent or whoever's alienating your kids from you. I would change their actions in a fucking heartbeat. Yesterday, last year, you know what I'm saying? But here we are, you know? Every so often, something like the other day at the card store will kind of slide in and show me that, oh, right, now you're still a human being. And you still, of course, feel affected by a situation where people are not acting nicely. You know, people are acting, I don't even want to put a label on it because I don't think that's going to do you guys a service. But yeah, I get it. I used to be of this mindset that, well, if alienation's not the problem, if we don't make it the problem, and if that is not our message to the world, then the problem will never change, right? Then the alienator will be able to keep getting away with all of this. They will keep taking advantage, and then this will grow and grow and grow if we're just denying that the problem exists. That is not what I'm talking about, and I hope that you guys understand that. In fact, I think that by noticing where you find the problems in your head and not focusing on waiting on them to change, which they never will, not because you want them to, that's for sure. It's a fruitless venture, you know what I'm saying, endeavor. Focusing on what they're doing wrong is only going to have you walk away empty-handed, frustrated, exhausted, and maybe further in debt. Maybe you lose a job because of your focus on the problem. Maybe you lose relationships. You know how it goes, right? You're focusing only on that. That has now defined you and your whole entire life. And that's what got us here to begin with, right? Is we didn't have necessarily the boundaries. I mean, I'm generalizing here, but I believe when we chose the person that would alienate our children from us, let me just speak for myself, so I'm not pointing any fingers towards you guys, but when I chose the person who would alienate my kid from me, I obviously was not displaying boundaries. I didn't know what a boundary was. I didn't know how to execute, how to say a boundary. I sort of floated through life. And then what love was when the other person liked you as much as you liked them. You guys sort of meshed into each other, and then you guys became one, like how you hear about it in the storybooks and soap operas and whatever. You guys become one, and then y'all just partner for life, and there are no boundaries because you guys love each other and will take care of each other, and you're just amoebaed into each other. You know what I'm saying? I had no boundaries, and so I didn't know where myself ended and he began, and vice versa. There was definitely no emotional adulthood, emotional intelligence going into that relationship and also in leaving the relationship. But that is truly why I believe that alienation was able to ensue, right? That he was able to exercise the strategies that he did. And also, of course, his then now my daughter's stepmom, when they joined together, they also have no boundaries, but on the other side of things, right? And so when it all started back then, and even before when I was with him, it was him and I, he sort of defined me, right? The relationship defined me. Then my daughter, when I had my daughter, she defined who I was, right? Then I was a mom. And then leaving the relationship and being with my daughter, I was a mom, and I was a mom who was being harassed, being sort of attacked by these two people. And so that made up my identity. And then because I was focusing on them, that actually overtook the peaceful part of me being a mom. And instead, I was a tormented mom. It's reminding me of that quote that, and I don't know who said this one, it wasn't Dan Sullivan, but that quote about ships don't sink because of the water around them. They sink because of the water that gets in them. We can have craziness go on all around us. And let's say me, you are your ship, I am my ship. There can be craziness going on all around us, and waves and tidal waves and what have you, right? But a ship will not sink unless those waves come inside the boat. And for you and I, the only way that water comes inside of the boat is if we aren't setting the proper boundaries, right? If we are allowing the outside to define who we are today. If we're allowing alienation to be writing our story for us, if we are allowing for, like me the other day, for what I think that my daughter might receive any one of these cards as, to define which one I choose from her, number one, and how close or distant our relationship is. If I'm relying on somebody outside of me to dictate how I think about how I choose to love somebody, you know what I'm saying? Like, if that is actually what's affecting me, then I have no autonomy. They are the ones dictating. They're the ones defining my relationship to them. And that can never be. It can't work out well anyway. Then you will feel at the effect of the alienation of your child, of whoever you're allowing onto your ship. So it's not that your ship or any boundary that you set is keeping you apart from anybody, actually the opposite, right? Your ship is your ship. It is your brain. It is your heart, your nervous system that is responding, reacting in all of these situations. Don't let how you think somebody else is behaving or receiving you dictate how you show up in the world. Do you know what I'm saying? And the last concept I will bring up that actually is also Dan Sullivan is you are the context, not the content. So you are the one who decides. The content is the ocean, the people, or the things that happen around you. That is your content, the circumstances outside of you. The alienation, content. It does not define you. You give that content context. You decide how you want to see it moving forward. And if you want to see it as a problem or the best thing that happened to you, maybe possibly it could be the best thing that ever happened to you. Like I was sharing, was it in last week's episode or was that maybe in a Facebook Live about my friend that was like, oh, your daughter saved you, blah, 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 right? I think it was in the episodes. You're stronger and this, that, whatever. It is true. I chose that. I am going to use this to strengthen me. I am going to use this to grow myself. I could have had it like I did for so long, keep me held down. Nobody's writing you. You are the author. You decide. You give all of that content, all of the circumstances outside of you. You give that context. You designate and decide for yourself how you want to use it in your life. It's props. Look at alienation, look at your children, all of that. And I don't mean to trivialize your children, but you get it. How you want to receive them, how you want to use them, and how you, you know what I'm saying, is up to you. Do you want to use them to push you forward, or do you want to use them to keep you down? The last quote that I will say by him too is, I think this was from Gap versus Gain, and it is the past and how we view it is more a reflection of where we are currently than it is a reflection on the past itself. Your take on what has happened in today is indicative of where you are today, right? As opposed to anything that might have happened in the past. How you perceive it today is very telling as to who you've become as a result of it, right? So if you tell your story in a way that keeps you down and, oh, because of my past, I was beaten, I was robbed, I was raped, I was pillaged, all of the things back, I don't mean to laugh at that, but if I tell a story of victimization and how all of my past has made me the weak and disadvantaged person I am today, then that is clearly showing who I am and how I'm using my past to define me today. Or if I say all of those things that happened to me in the past, and I see those things as what pushed me forward and made me the woman that I am today, same exact past, but I use those things to lift me up. Clearly, this shows an entirely different take, an entirely different version of me. The way that you view your past says everything about who you are today and not really anything about your past, because our past is just what we make of it. It's all just memories anyway. So it shows here that Dan Sullivan actually was quoting Dr. Ben Slith in the book Time and Psychological Explanation. We reinterpret or reconstruct our memory in light of what our mental set is in the present. In this sense, it is more accurate to say that the present causes meaning of the past than it is to say that the past causes meaning of the present. Our memories are not stored in objective entities, but living parts of ourselves in the present. This is the reason that our present moods and future goals so affect our memories. So it really all depends on your state of mind and how you're viewing what has happened in your past. So what problems are you seeing in your life today that you are pointing the finger and delegating, I can't change until they do? What problems are you creating in your head? If you're not seeing it as a problem, then what would you do with it? You see what I'm saying? Maybe none of the things that we think are problems are actually problems, but just life, and they're just circumstances, neutrals that are happening. And we could use them make them problems, or we could make them what serves us most and brings us to our highest state. Oh, this happened for me because now I've done this, this, and this. This is what got me my promotion. Now I'm blah, blah, blah. Because I am finding all the advantages and all of the opportunity in whatever is happening outside of us, right? Outside of me. So I know that seems a little woo and a little wordy and a little vague all at the same time, but I also think that if you're getting the concept, then you can apply it to anywhere in your life. And again, I will reiterate, please know that when I say this, I am not saying that the alienating party or alienation as a whole is something that we should just come to terms with or just allow in our lives and just lay down for. In fact, what I'm saying is the opposite, is that when you're not putting the problem outside, then you're able to find more solutions for yourself in the now, because then not only is your nervous system not as activated, but also then you don't hyper focus on something that you can't control anyway. So then you completely blind yourself to all of the solutions you could be implementing. Do you know what I'm saying? You're problem focused and not solution focused. So if we decide to let go of the problems that we're making in our head and see how we can use it all for us, then we can advocate in our highest state for ourselves and for our children so that we can reconnect with them if that's what you want, so that we can model for them in the best way. You will be much better able to serve yourself and them by letting go of any problem that you think you're seeing right now, so that you can live in the solution. Okay? The only problems that exist are the ones that we create in our minds. Otherwise, they're just water outside of our ship, just things that are happening. And then we can decide the best, most effective, efficient way possible to move forward from here. Okay? Takes you out of this whole stress response, foggy brains, life is over, I can't pay my rent, that, and get you into a higher place of thinking. You are the context, you provide context to everything that is happening outside of you. You define it for yourself. You define what your relationship is with your child, even if you obviously you can't control how other people are behaving, but your relationship with your child exists in your brain anyway. It's how you think about who they are, what's happening, blah, 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 blah. And if you're not seeing everything as a problem, but you're seeing it as working for you, there is no barrier. There's just maybe a different time for you guys, right? And until that time comes, you work on you and do all the things necessary. And also when you don't see a problem right in front of you, like this big, like, oh my God, everything has gone terribly wrong sort of thing, you're able to relax a little bit and reconnect with the you that is inside, the real you that will ultimately bring you to your highest self. When we're listening to the outside, to the external, being defined by external things, circumstances, people, then we dissociate from ourselves, dissociate a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, until we cannot hear our own voice. And so by turning the focus back in and looking to see how it is that all of this could have actually been here, like setting you up for you to then spike over the net. Okay, that's what I have for you guys today.